feedback mechanism. Ask yourself, first of all, what were they detecting? They were detecting high levels of sodium chloride in the filtrate. All right? And the overall scenario was automatically a drop in blood pressure. So we tried the myogenic idea, right? I gave your myogenic a chance. I vasodilate, bring in more blood. More blood means increased pressure. Increased pressure means increased GFR. That should fix my problem. But if it doesn't, we then go to the tubular feedback pathway, which is basically doing just the opposite. You're going to vasoconstrict because they saw lots of sodium chloride in the filtrate as it's moving through. You think about why is there a lot of sodium chloride? Probably because it's moving through so damn fast. If it's moving through so fast, I won't have time to absorb the water that's in there. I'll end up peeing that water right out. And that water won't help me raise my blood pressure. So if I vasoconstrict, I do just the opposite of common sense. I'm already low in BP. I'm going to vasoconstrict. Yes, that will help me to probably even lower my GFR a little bit more. But by vasoconstricting and slowing down the flow, now it goes through slowly. I have more time to absorb the sodium, more time to absorb the water, and that increased amount of absorbed materials can go into my blood and hopefully raise my blood pressure. Hopefully that'll work. Now if that doesn't work, right, then we do the angiotensin pathway. And we know that we're going to get, whoops, let me get my buttons here. We're going to get ADH released from the supraoptic nuclei, my hypothalamus, due to angiotensin II. I know ADH puts more aquaporins into my nephron structure to increase my water reabsorption, but also has two other interesting effects under prolonged exposure. It will also eventually have you to vasoconstrict. Now I've got two vasoconstricting signals, one due to ADH under high doses and prolonged levels, right? But also my angiotensin II causes vasoconstriction. Whoops, and ADH under long exposure also triggers your thirst center as well to really make sure you drink in lots of water. Those are the three different things that ADH can do. Increase aquaporin levels, vasoconstrict under high doses. So you have to be careful when you, if you answer this on your exam for if maybe 3 points, that when you say ADH increases vasoconstriction, you have to qualify by saying under prolonged or high doses. Normal doses won't do that. It's under high doses. And you have to say it will then under prolonged exposure lead to vasoconstriction and also thirst center activity. We're just going to ignore Haley back there.
I just wondering, could you say them one more time, the three?
They're right there.
Oh.
Vasoconstriction, activating your thirst center. Right? Find them?
Yes.
Okay.
What was the third?
Third one, Amazon delivery of books. I gotta do. Gotta have Amazon delivery
So
of
I
coffee.
do have a question about this, John. So we started with the myogenic response.
Right.
So there, what's happened is it's saying, wait a minute, GFR has dropped. GFR has dropped because the blood pressure has dropped. But the first response is GFR has dropped, so it dilates the afferent to increase GFR.
Right.
But then it's watching the tubule, the draining, the filtration. The filtrator say, wait a minute, GFR is good, but now we're losing too much sodium and
But
chloride.
that doesn't even mean GFR is good. We're still be saying that we still have high levels, so something's not working right.
We did the response to low GFR, but now we're losing too much ions and nutrients. So then it starts this whole other thing around conserving water.
Yeah, or you think that
conserving the
we're still
ions
losing
and
too
all.
much water.
Right, just losing too much water.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing it's normally doing is maybe, you said second by second, so you're running up the stairs and you're going for your 5-mile run, it's responding to those kind of things, but if there's a prolonged thing, then you get these other responses start kicking in, like the water response,
Right.
and the stress response, things like that. Okay.
Yeah. Now, just to remind you sort of a visual aid of what ADH will do, I can see that it's inserting aquaporins along in here. And if you look at this, right, nobody's saying that loud. Can you tell me what kind of a hormone ADH is? Is it hydrophilic, hydrophobic? Can you tell even if it's hydrophobic, hydrophilic? Or you have no way of knowing if it's hydrophilic, hydrophilic?
Yeah.
It's hydro.
It's fat soluble, lipid soluble, right?
No. You can tell it's hydrophilic because it's landing on a membrane-bound receptor. Probably activating the G protein complex, like cyclase, PKA, bingo, and they have these little cool vesicles that are already inside of your cells. They already contain aquaporins, and they're just aching to be put into the membrane. All they need is an intracellular signaling system to say, hey, take your pre-factory made aquaporins and shove them in the membrane, which is kind of cool. And you'll actually insert them into the membrane. All right, let's get on to this next little one. We already know what aldosterone will do, right? Increased sodium reabsorption, increased potassium secretion. We already know all that. Nothing fun about this one whatsoever. Do not memorize this. Only look at it when you're totally done with the lecture notes and you're ready for the exam. All right, as a confirmation of, yes, I know this. There's several things I don't already have to learn, but I have found from previous students that this helps them in PA school and in nursing programs. So I've stuck it in your notes for future reference. So right now, this is a big fat FYI. Otherwise, do not spend time on it. But you should look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. Oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't have to learn that before, but now I'm aware of its effects. Let's get to the other problem. Increase in blood pressure. So what was the myogenic response when we had a decrease in blood pressure? We vasodilated, right? Well, now we're going to vasoconstrict, right? We're going to basically do this. Right? Now, be careful. If you're really paying attention to how these authors are working, I look at this first diagram way back here and I realize, okay, they put normal on the right side and the solution on the left side. Now, they put normal on the left side and the solution on the right side. Just be careful as you look at these and just read them, right? Normal and then increased. What do we do with increased blood pressure? We're going to narrow. We're going to vasoconstrict. And by vasoconstricting, what happens to GFR? It goes down, right? Now, this high blood pressure one is a little interesting. In a way, it's going to be self-correcting. And you'll see what I mean by that by the end of the next couple of slides. Let's start it right here, actually. If I have high blood pressure, ooh, I didn't damage any of those cells. Cool.
Good job.
Here comes our blood, our afferent arterial. We have purple blood, apparently. And there's our efferent. If I have an increase in BP, what happens to my glomerular filtration rate? Automatically. It's going to go up, right? Because I have high blood pressure. Cool, great. I've got an increase in GFR. If I do nothing at all, and thinking about Lucille Ball and Chocolate Factory idea, right? Or my tubular glomerular filtration feedback mechanism response. Increase in GFR means this stuff moves through faster. If it moves through faster, I have less time to reabsorb. I'll end up peeing out that fluid, and eventually I'll pee out so much fluid that my blood pressure will drop back down to normal, as long as I don't drink anything. So it is kind of self-correcting.
Peeing out extra sodium too, right?
Right. I can't do that with a drop in blood pressure, but I can just kind of ride it out, and it'll eventually be a self-correcting thing. Do you see how that would work? So you want to keep that in mind. Now, besides the idea of a myogenic response, where what I want to do is I'm going to vasoconstrict because that high blood pressure might actually be structurally damaging to my glomerulus. That's probably why I want to decrease the flow into it, because if I do vasoconstrict, what happens to the blood pressure in my glomerulus? It will go down, right? And I want to do that probably to save the structural integrity. Not so much to slow down the flow rate of stuff, but I want to protect my glomerulus so it doesn't explode on me. So I'm going to vasoconstrict, that lowers the pressure. I'm not quite willing to explode. It's still high. I'll still have a faster than normal filtration rate. But I'm doing it now to actually protect my glomerulus, rather than trying to conserve fluid. Now, we have a hormone response, because if this does not work, if vasoconstricting by a myogenic process does not work, then we're going to go to round 2, which is going to be hormonal responses. Now keep in mind the problem as we walk through all of this. The problem in this case was an increase in BP, large volumes of blood. I need to get rid of extra volume. So how can I do that? Well, we are going to have a hormone mechanism from the right atrium, releasing a hormone called ANP. And what does ANP do? It makes you pee. All right? That will help drop my blood volume. And by dropping blood volume, I drop blood pressure. That's the quick and dirty of this little idea. Well, what specifically is happening to make me pee more? You've got a few things to keep in mind about what ANP is going to do. At the nephron, you're going to dilate the afferent and you're going to constrict the efferent. That sounds familiar. Where have we dilated and constricted before? Way over here with the myogenic response. But we did that when we had a drop in blood pressure. We're doing the same thing apparently when we have both increases and decreases in phone calls. Hello, Mary. So how does this work? If I vasodilate, what happens to flow? It increases, right? So think of the logic of this. If I dilate the afferent, make it bigger, and I make my efferent a bit narrower, that will increase my glomerular filtration rate, right? Because I'm sorry, hang on here. Yeah, it does. It increases GFR, more blood comes in here, it'll move through faster. Okay, self-correcting problem, that works for me. As long as there's no structural damage to my actual glomerulus. So I'm doing that, but then what else am I also doing as well as dilating the afferent and constricting the efferent to raise an already high GFR, I'm making it a little bit higher. Because the interesting thing is, how high can the blood pressure get in here? It can get pretty damn high, up to 180 millimeters of mercury. Bless you. That's pretty high. So we have a good structural integrity here. By making it more go through, look what else we're going to do. What is the second thing that ANP will do? Besides doing vasoconstriction, vasodilating, we also do this. We inhibit ADH and we inhibit the effects of aldosterone. So we inhibit ADH activity and we inhibit aldosterone activity. They can't do their jobs. Now let's think about why that's a benefit. What does aldosterone lead to? The increase in sodium reabsorption, right? If I reabsorb more sodium, water's going to want to follow it, right? And that water goes into my blood, right? I already have high blood pressure. Why the hell would I want to do that? So let's not allow as much sodium to be reabsorbed. And then the ADH, well, that puts in aquaporins. That gives the water a place to go through. But if I don't have enough places for the water to go through, then they can't go back into my blood. And so they're both working to allow you to flush out as much urine as possible, which would end up lowering your blood pressure. So that first one seems a bit counterintuitive. Like you're simply taking advantage of the Lucille Ball chocolate factory scenario, right? Which probably should be put in textbooks now. Then on top of that, I really reinforce it by making sure that I can't do, let's try this. You can't do sodium reabsorption, right? So my sodium to be reabsorbed, I'm not going to want to do that. And any water reabsorption, we'll put that over here. Right? I don't want to do that either. So I get to keep the water in my filtrate, and I get to keep the sodium in my filtrate, which is why the water is there in the first place. The more sodium that stays in the filtrate, the more water that stays in the filtrate, the more volume I pee, the more volume I pee, the lower my pressure gets to become. Yeah? Okay. Now here we can see what ANP does, right? What they're trying to show you is that there's the idea of inhibiting your sodium reabsorption. And again, under prolonged levels, right? Since the problem was increased blood pressure, right? You think about ADH. Where's my ADH? Right? We had ADH and angiotensin II, both causing vasoconstriction, right? Vasoconstriction with angiotensin II, vasoconstriction with prolonged high levels of ADH, both in response to low blood pressure. Why not do a vasodilation? Find the right button here. With AMP. Not only do I allow more liquid to travel through my filtrate, I'm also dilating my peripheral vascular tissue, so I get a larger volume, which also helps to lower the pressure in my blood vessels.
And
No.
not so long, right?
Probably after, yeah, no one's actually, they always said prolonged, so I kind of think of it at least maybe a day or so of doing this. Just remember where ANP comes from, right?
So the vasodilation after prolonged also, in which other piece of it?
That's the only one that's prolonged. All right, ANP will directly inhibit your sodium and water reabsorption, which they're trying to show you with that part right there in our little pictures. Now let's go back to this thing. I don't have a slide directly for it. Let's go back to this. Remember, this was a problem with, oh shit. I'm gonna talk really fast, no. We'll finish this up on Wednesday. We're gonna finish this up right now. In response to a drop in blood pressure, if the myogenics didn't work, I did a hormone response of the renin-angiotensin pathway. That required me to release renin, and then to have another enzyme called ACE. And ACE allowed us to create angiotensin II. Angiotensin II allowed us, right, to reabsorb more sodium, to reabsorb more water, to consume more water, because I created angiotensin II. Well, this is where an ACE inhibitor comes in. If my problem is high blood pressure, I don't want to consume more water. I don't want to reabsorb more sodium. I don't want to be able to reabsorb more water. So let's stop that process from going. Right? So if I have an ACE inhibitor given to me by my doctor, right, then I can prevent this from happening. If my body's trying to do this for some stupid reason, I can be given an ACE inhibitor to cut this off at the quick so I don't have these effects taking place. That's another way of actually dropping your blood pressure. Because if you have a moment of decrease in blood pressure, the body panics, goes, oh my God, let's raise John's blood pressure up. But then the rest of the day I'm all stressed out, right? So he's going to anticipate the days or the hours where I am stressed, give me an ACE inhibitor, so that I can try to keep a more normal average blood pressure. Make sure that we understand how this works, because on Wednesday we're going to talk about, we'll finish this on maybe on lab on Wednesday, or we'll do it in lecture on Wednesday. We're going to be looking at diuretics, all right, and the effects, the mechanisms of diuretic activity, and how they're used to do whatever they are designed to do, and a problem with potassium levels. So even though I didn't talk about hyper and hypokalemia for cardiac, we're going to have a little hyperkalemia discussion, then talk about diuretics and how they influence those levels of potassium. So those of you that have lab, we'll see you guys in a few minutes, and lab will start in 10 minutes.